Well, hey there once again. This is Daniel Hadaway, and this is Drummer Daily, the podcast. That's what you're listening to right now. So, fun fact before I get started today, I just recorded this episode, and something terrible happened. I don't know exactly what it is, but something on my iPhone messed up and lost the whole thing. And so I am re-recording this episode right now. So I will do my best. It was really good. And I don't know if this is going to be as good, but we're going to work for it and see if I can do it. All right, so yesterday's episode, I talked about how you should never compromise your morals or your beliefs for any reason. And I certainly believe that, but I realize that today I'm about to compromise my morals and my beliefs. Why is that? That's because I am going to talk about something that I really don't like, and that is the University of Tennessee's football program. I know, it sounds awful, right? Well, you might be asking, wait a minute, why in the world do you dislike University of Tennessee football so much? And the real reason, if I really were to be honest with myself, is that I'm just a contrarian. I really just like to go against the grain, whatever I'm surrounded with. If everyone else says I really like chocolate ice cream, I'm just going to say I like vanilla, even if I really like chocolate better. I'm going to say I like vanilla just because I want to be different and special and unique and stand out. And so my whole life, when I was a little kid, I moved a few times. And for most of my young life, we lived in Alabama. And most of the people around us were University of Alabama fans. And so, of course, at that time, my family, we all chose to be Auburn fans. Now, I was born close to Auburn, Alabama, so it's not like completely disingenuous. But a strong motivation for it was still that everyone else was Alabama fans. Now, a little bit later on, we moved up to Kentucky. We moved to Louisville. And you might expect that everyone around me were University of Louisville fans. But really, where I lived at least, the people that I knew, almost everyone was University of Kentucky fans. And I think a big reason why was because at the time, Kentucky's basketball team, which was the biggest sport there in Kentucky, their basketball team was better. And so everyone liked to support a winning team. I don't know if that was really it. But anyway, so of course, when the big rivalry game came up and Louisville played against Kentucky, I was always rooting for Louisville just because everyone that I knew was rooting for Kentucky. Probably was pretty annoying, actually, now I think about it. And then when I was a teenager, we moved to Nashville, and everyone around me was University of Tennessee football fans. They were all University of Tennessee football fans, UT as we say. And of course that meant I could not support UT just because everyone else was. And so I guess I would choose to be a Vanderbilt fan, which wasn't easy. It's not easy because in sports, Vanderbilt really isn't most of the time as good as Tennessee at pretty much any sport. But I will say this, I am a Tennessee Titans fan. I live in Nashville, I'm a Tennessee Titans fan. And I don't care who is or is not a fan. If you are a Titans fan, you are a friend of mine. And I am not being a contrarian with that, at least. I actually am a Titans fan. In the good and the bad. There's been a lot of bad recently. I'm a Titans fan. So what does all this have to do with drumming? Well, a few weeks ago, the University of Tennessee football program was embroiled in a huge controversy, a lot of drama, and that was they had fired their head football coach, and the rumors were they had hired a new coach, and whoever this new coach was, the fans did not like this guy. They didn't want this guy to be the coach, and so they raised the biggest fuss. They took to social media. They complained, and it was like the end of the world. People went nuts, and eventually, before they even announced this guy, the university officials changed their minds and said, "Oh no, we're just kidding. We're not offering this guy a job," and they took it back basically because the fans were so outraged. And so I like to listen to sports talk radio every once in a while, and I happened to be listening around this time, and they had just the rumor had just come out that they had moved on and found a new guy. This guy was I think he was a coordinator, might have been a defensive or offensive coordinator for University of Alabama, incidentally. Anyway, this was before they had officially announced this guy was the coach, but all the rumors were they had offered him the job and he was going to take it. So they, all the sports talk guys here in town were talking about this new guy, and everyone felt pretty good about him. And it caught my attention because they were saying something along the lines of when they were, all these armchair quarterbacks were saying, calling in, or people on the host of the show were all saying, you know what, I like this guy. He's got what it takes to do the job. And they never were talking about specific skills he has as a coach. I mean, he had never been a head coach before. And so they couldn't really talk about his head coaching, decision making or whatever it was. They just talked about his personality qualities and his traits, but that was enough to make them feel like it was a good hire. And so they were saying things, like he's a good leader, and he gets the support of his players, and he's reliable, or he's a steady presence, he's a calm, he knows how to command attention, but also keep respect of other people around him. They were talking about things like that. And I was like, man, they're not talking about how good of a necessarily, on the surface, the very tangible coaching skills. Like, he's really great at dialing up the 4-3, defense or whatever at the right time or whatever it was. They weren't talking about anything like that. They were just talking about his personality traits. And so one thing that I like to do when I hear conversations like this, and I don't know where this came from, I guess part of it's just that I have a crazy imagination and it runs wild sometimes, is I like to imagine when I hear conversations like this that they're not talking about the UT football coach, they're talking about me. And they're not talking about coaching football, they're talking about drumming. And so I would pretend that instead of a head coaching job, I'm listening to a bunch of musicians or a producer and an artist talking about them hiring a drummer for a recording project, or hiring a drummer for a big tour or something like that. And then they're not saying, coaching things. They're talking about my qualities, my personality qualities that might qualify me for the job as a drummer. And so they might be saying things like, man, he's a great leader. He's got what it takes to do this. They're not talking about how fast my hands are or how insane I can, run circles around, I don't know, Thomas Lang or somebody. They're talking about my personality and how good of a leader I am, or how reliable I am as a drummer, or how encouraging I am, or how nice it is to be around me, things like that. Now, when I imagine this, of course, I know that all these things probably aren't true about me. Maybe I'm not a good leader, or maybe I'm not reliable, or I'm not as reliable as I could be, or whatever the other piece of the conversation is. And so the next thing I like to do is I start to think, okay, well, what do I need to do in my own life in order to make those things true? So if I'm not a good leader, what are the qualities that I need to have in order to be a good leader? And then I can work on those things. And so I want to encourage you to do the same thing. Start listening for conversations where other people are saying that so-and-so is really good for this job, or they really belong here, or I really like having this person around because of this or that. And then start thinking about, okay, well, in order for it to be true, if they were talking about you, in order for that to be true about you and your drumming, or you as a musician, what things in your life would need to change, or what things do you need to work on in order to make that true? Are you reliable on the drums? Do you just at the core level, do you not crash and burn whenever you are playing? Those kinds of questions are things that you need to ask yourself and start working towards. And that's not just true about drumming. That could be true about pretty much any opportunity that you want to go for, or even just self-improvement. And again, this isn't about compromising or changing who you are at your core. You're still you, I'm still me. But me becoming a better leader, or me becoming more reliable, that's not compromising who I am. That's just me improving and helping those around me in a better way. And I think that's something that we all can get behind and try to pursue. And I hope you can. All right, thanks for joining me today, and we'll be back again real soon for more Drummer Daily. Bye for now.